Tape 1, March 31st, 1996. Interview with Helena Roth Friedman by Scott Fried in Forest Hills, New York, United States, conducted in English. I'm Scott Fried, and I'm here with Helena Roth in her home in Forest Hills, New York, on March 31st, 1996, conducting her Holocaust testimony. Good morning, Ms. Roth.
Good morning. Okay.
I'd like you to begin first just by stating your name at birth and where you were born.
My name is Helena Friedman, was Helena Friedman. I was born in Újlag, Czechoslovakia.
And when was this?
Újlag, the year 1930.
Well, the exact day?
August 8, 1930.
Now, can you describe for us, sort of paint a picture of what Újlag looked like?
Well, Újlag was a town, mostly Slovak people, and quite a few Jewish families. The life was very, very nice during the Czechoslovakian regime, while Masaryk was in power, and for the Jewish people was very good. Czechoslovakia was a very good country.
Was Újlag a city or more like a
town?
About how many people?
About 5,000.
And what proportion were Jews?
There were about 40 families.
And
Jewish.
Did they live with each other or amongst the population?
Among the population.
So you yourself and your family didn't live in necessarily a Jewish center of town?
No, we lived in the center of town, but not necessarily next to Jewish people. 3-4 houses away was another family. Across the street were my grandparents, my mother's brothers, sisters who lived there.
So most of the family lived within this town?
Not most, but a few. Well, they were 12 children, so not everybody lived there. But her parents lived there, my mother's parents, and my mother's 3 brothers.
Was the Friedman family, your family, large?
The Friedman family, my father's.
Your immediate family, just you and your...
Yeah, we were 5 children. There were 3 sisters and 2 brothers.
What were their names?
Berta was the oldest, and then it was me, Helena, and the brother, but I don't know how he would be called in English.
Well, you can say it in Slovak
Yiddish.
or Czech or Yiddish.
In Yiddish, Wolf, Yid. And then was Regina, and then was Yeshayahu.
Were you a close-knit group of siblings? Were you...
Yes.
Any of them in particular? Were you and the oldest maybe closer?
Not necessarily. We were close to each other. No, not that I was closer to one more than the other one. No.
Can you remember anything about some of them for it and tell us about it?
But they were too young. They were small. They were all born after me. They were younger than me. We were going to school. Regina, my sister, I liked very much. The brothers were younger, and they went to yeshiva, to smaller yeshiva. So I didn't go there. We went to other school, to the girls' school.
What was Regina like? You mentioned that there must have been something about her.
No, she was very. I liked her very much. We were close with her. Remember, I wanted to learn how to ride a bicycle, and my father wouldn't let it. We didn't have the money to buy the bicycle. This was already 1930, after 1938. So we borrowed, and she wanted to learn the bicycle too. Later, we borrowed my neighbor's bicycle, the 2 of us. That's why I'm saying that we were close. She was helping me, and I wanted to help her to ride a bicycle. She was too small, so she couldn't, but I learned that.
There was an older sister than you, though?
Yes, she's here.
What's her name?
Berta.
How much older than you was she?
2 years.
Was she more of the figure in the family of the children who looked out for everybody? or were you and her close like you were with a younger daughter?
No, I think I was closer to my younger sister. We did look up to her, but somehow or other, I don't know why we. You see, I would not have asked her to come and hold a bicycle for me, because I want to learn.
Why not?
Well, also she was more. Once the Hungarian came, the regime took over. They took away from my father was not a Hungarian citizen. He came from Slovakian part. My mother was born in Újlak, so she was considered a Hungarian citizen because this was always Hungary, Austro-Hungary. But at that time, the place where my father was born remained Slovakia, and he was considered a Slovak citizen. So the Hungarian took away the permit for the business.
So your sister had to work?
So my sister had to work, and that's why I didn't have so much time with her.
You've mentioned your mother and your father. Let's talk about them. First, your mother. What was her name?
Hermina.
What was her maiden name?
Lowy, L-O-W-Y.
And describe her for us.
Well, she was a very, very, very fine lady. Very fine lady. She, I remember she used to have friends. Friends came over, and I was a child. I was listening in, they were talking. And everybody, the other one was praising her children. The other one was praising her children. And my mother didn't. And I asked her once, how come, Mommy, how come that you never praise your children? We are good children. And she says, no. She said, I want other people to praise my children. I will never praise my children. She was a really special woman. My father was a learner. He liked to learn the Talmud.
What was his name?
Solomon. As a matter of fact, he was one of the most learned men in the vicinity there. You know, in Talmud, I'm talking about the Talmud.
He was a man who was to be respected by all the people of Roth?
Yes, very much so.
Did it matter if they were Jewish or not? Was he...
No, he was respected by the Gentile people too. He was a merchant. I told you he was in business, grain business. He was buying grain from the farmers, and then he was selling it. And many, many, many times I heard them saying that there were other merchants in the town. And they said they don't like to go there because they knew if they sell it to my father, they won't be cheated.
You said your father bought grain and sold it. Those who grew grain, were they mostly the Slovak
farmers,
population?
yes.
So he was able to get to know both sides of the population in town.
Yeah, he was very, very, very liked, very well liked by the priests used to come and talk to him about the Talmud.
Really?
Yeah, the priest from the town.
It was a very Orthodox town, very religious on both sides, Christian and
Yes,
Jewish?
yes, yes. Mostly Catholics, the Slovaks, and there were some Greek Catholic, that's another one.
Greek Orthodox.
Greek Orthodox, yeah.
Your family, how would you describe your father and your mother and your family's view on Judaism at the time? Were they very religious people?
They were religious. They were Orthodox, very Orthodox.
Did your father look the part that they say? Was he a man who looked like a member of Czech society, or one who more or less looked very religious in his appearance?
Well, he was religious, he looked religious, he had a beard, but he was worldly. You could talk to him anything in the world, politics. He was very worldly, very religious, but very worldly. And that's why the priest used to come and talk to him. He liked him. He liked the politics to talk to him. And those years there were changes. There were not to talk.
Before we discuss that, because I want to get back to his knowledge of politics, The family was very religious. What was I would imagine that Shabbat or Shabbos around your household was a very big thing. What was it like? Can you describe what happened every Friday night?
Well, just Friday night, my mother used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning Friday to bake.
We'll start
For
with
the whole
us at
week.
4 in the morning then.
Yeah, for Friday to bake for the whole week, bread and challah for Shabbos and cake and whatever, and cook. And we're cleaning every Friday. The house was spotless, clean, spotless.
Whole family effort?
Yeah, the girls, no matter how small we were, we all helped. And then Friday evening, before the Sabbath, my mother lit the candles. My father and the brothers, when they were a little older, they went to shul with him.
None of the women ever went?
The women, no. The women went, do you know what Rosh Chodesh is?
Yes.
When a week before Rosh Chodesh is, or the Sabbath before, there is a blessing for the month, yeah, for the Chodesh. So the women went. Not the girls,
The married women went.
the married women. The girls, we were taught, my father taught us how to pray, how to write in Yiddish. In Slovak or Hungarian we learned in school. But in Yiddish he taught us, and so we had to daven at home. We had to pray at home.
When the family spoke with each other, did you speak Yiddish to each other?
Hungarian. My father spoke to us Yiddish because he wanted us to know Yiddish. But my mother did not speak that well Yiddish, but she spoke perfect Hungarian. She went to Hungarian school. He spoke Hungarian very well too, but the only reason he wanted to speak Yiddish is because he wanted us to know.
In town, when Jews spoke with each other, they spoke in Yiddish?
No.
They spoke in Slovak?
No, the Jews spoke Hungarian.
Oh, okay.
And with the other neighbors, we spoke Slovak.
Very confusing at times. So
Well, you grow up with 3 languages. It's, in a way, it's good. You learn other languages and you grow up with them. I grew up, so I knew Hungarian very well. When Hungarian came in, I knew Hungarian. And Slovak. And when I came to Auschwitz, the Yiddish came handy too.
Now, you learned all these languages. Let's go and take a look at your schooling. You were very young, granted, but you did have some schooling in Czechoslovakia.
In Slovakia.
Describe the school for us.
Well, school is like over here, elementary. Boys and girls together.
Jews and non-Jews all together.
Everybody together. And in the beginning, I mean, when I started, it was in Slovak. All the teaching was Slovak. And then in 1938, in November, Hitler gave over this part of Slovakia to Hungary. We were forced to learn the teachers, all the Slovak teachers were gone. They hired new Hungarian teachers, and they were teaching Hungarian.
Your time in school and in town, you lived in a mixed population. Was there a level of anti-Semitism that existed? Or?
Well, there was, and especially after the Hungarians took over.
Well, for the moment, what about before?
Before there was none. I mean, even if they were, they did not show it, because it was a very good country, and I think that they would have been punished if they would have shown anti-Semitism.
So as a child, before the Hungarians took your part of Czechoslovakia...
Once in a while you could hear somebody say quietly to the boys going to the yeshiva, that stinky Jew, or remarks, but not openly, you know.
But nothing more than you might hear anywhere, even in this country.
No. But after the Hungarians came in, everything changed.
Now, did you have any religious training other than what your father taught you, or you just went to public schools?
Just to public school.
Your brothers, though, were sent to
Yes.
yeshiva.
My father didn't want us to go because there was mixed. in the yeshiva there was, in the smaller grades, they were mixed, and my father didn't want us to go. He was Orthodox, he didn't want us. So he taught us. And I realized that later, years later, that we know much more than those girls who went there.
So you felt, now you mentioned your father, although he was very religious, seemed to have had a big outlook on the world. He was very knowledgeable. Yes. Well, let's begin by saying this. Did you have family outside of Czechoslovakia?
I had, my father had 2 sisters here.
Already in the United States, as far back?
He came in 1920, 1980, 1919, I don't know, something like that, 1920. 2 sisters, he was corresponding with them.
So was there ever any thought of leaving Czechoslovakia?
In 1937, I think well, I did not remember it, but my aunts told us. We remember that later we found out that they sent, in Germany it started to brew already, it was brewing there already, and they wanted him to come out with the family to America because the grandfather wasn't alive anymore, and anyhow they sent affidavit for him. But he didn't want, in Czechoslovakia there was no reason to leave. And then when the Hungarian regime took over, everything remained in Prague. All the papers remained in Prague. By that time he would have wanted to, but he couldn't do it anymore.
Was your father, you were very young, but would you say your parents were avid readers of newspapers?
Yes, very much.
Now, your father, in his knowledge of what's going on in the world, did he read more than just the local papers? Was he a man who would read different languages?
Yeah, he would be interested in anything, yes. Yes.
Was this a matter of dinner table discussion, or was it kept away from you and the children what was going on?
No. They were discussing it by the table. We knew what's going on. We heard what's going on.
Now,
we had no radios.
Okay,
nobody had a radio there. But some, like the priest, he had a radio. My father used to go there, listen to the radio, bring home the news.
Now, how old would you say you were when you first, as a child being born back in 1930 would be too young to remember Hitler coming to power in neighboring Germany, but about how old would you say you were when you started to hear worries in Czechoslovakia?
In Czechoslovakia, no. But after the Hungarians, in 1938, when the Hungarians came over, we right away felt it because in school they separated us. The Jewish children had to sit in the back with the gypsies.
So you would say that up until the time that the Germans were given more or less Czechoslovakia, you didn't really know too much what was going on?
Well, we knew it from the news. We heard it from my father. But we didn't feel it so much.
Before I go on and talk about after the Hungarians took your part, I have one question. Now, you were very young, but did you feel, and your father too, because you can speak for him and your mother, did they feel like Czech citizens, or did they feel still separate? Would you say their patriotism would be towards Czechoslovakia?
I think it was. I remember that he got a book about Masaryk. He loved Masaryk very much. He liked to talk about him. He was a very good leader, and the Jewish people had it very good on. So I remember that there was. I just remembered there was a book from his about his life, about Masaryk's life, and he bought that book. He brought it home. He was reading it. So he was interested in anything. He was Orthodox, he was very religious, but worldly.
Now, you have alluded many times to what happened in November of 1938 when most of Czechoslovakia was taken by the Germans, but your part...
Not Germans, Hungary.
Well, most...
Oh, Czechoslovakia, the Sudeten one.
But your part was given over to Hungary, so describe for us life when it changed under Hungary.
Well, as soon as they came in November, And
when you say they came in, I'm sorry to interrupt you, did soldiers march into
Right.
town? Hungarians?
yes, the Czechs were marching out, and a few hours a day or so, I don't remember exactly, the Hungarian army marched in. And after that, this was in November, and the following year in January, my father had a sister who lived in a married sister with 8 children, who lived in a town about 10 kilometers from us. I don't know exactly. And her husband was Polish. So in January 1939, the Hungarians right away started to round up those people who were not citizens, Hungarian citizens. So first the Polish. So they took him, the uncle, in January 1939, put him over to the Polish border. We never heard from him since. And about a month or 2 months later, one evening the police from the town came knocking on our door that tell my father if he wants to see his sister once more, he should come out. They sent away the husband, and they took him to the border, and they took his wife because she was not a Hungarian citizen either. But what happened, those years many times they were married in Yiddish. You know, they had a chuppah, but they did not get married at Justice of Peace. So legally, they were not married. In Yiddish, they were married. So that's why they took him away, because they were not Polish citizens, because they were not married. But they were Slovak citizens. So they came knocking on the door that his sister they're taking the sister out to the border, to the Slovak border. The Slovak border was from us about 1.5 kilometers.
Oh, so you were right over the border into the new Hungary.
Yeah. So, no, from the Hungarian border before.
Oh, okay, before.
We were about 24 kilometers, but from the Slovak border now, in 1938, we were about 1.5 kilometers. So I remember we went to the windows as children. We heard what was going on. We wanted to see them. They wouldn't let us.
When this happened, and you say you remember hearing it, as a child, you were 8 years old, almost 9 years old.
We were afraid.
Okay, there was a fear.
We were afraid because my father was not a Hungarian citizen either.
But your mother was.
My mother was, but we didn't know what happened. And sure enough, after the sister left, my father went out to say goodbye to them. And we never saw them anymore after that. And about, I don't know, a few months later, I don't know whether it was a year or not, they came to tell my father that he has to get a Hungarian citizenship. If not, then we will be deported. And I remember that time, it was about a year later, because he went to, his grandfather was born in the Carpathian. He remembered that, he knew that. So he thought maybe the grandfather asked for a citizenship paper there, and this part was Hungarian.
Right.
So he went, it was in January, and for 2 weeks we didn't hear from him. It was big snow, and there was no mail delivery. There were no telephones, he couldn't call. We didn't know what happened, we were so worried. Anyhow, he came home, and it was a very big snow there too, and by us also. So he came back, he couldn't get the citizenship paper. The grandfather never requested any, and so it's later they deported us. They wanted to take us to the Ukraine, and in the last minute, just before, there was no train where I come from. There were buses going to the train station. In our cases, when they were deporting us, this was in 1942, they were deporting us on horse and buggies. And
so for for about 2 or 3 years, your father was able to live without citizenship.
Yeah, but he was in hiding. He couldn't go to school. His luck was that one of the policemen was very nice, and he always came to talk to him, not openly, but he came in, and he liked to talk to him, and he came to warn us.
Would you say that your father's status in town might have helped with this?
I think yes, because the Gentile population had a very high opinion about him. And so anyhow, he came to warn us that you don't want to be in trouble, try not to show your face. This way they won't see you. If they will see you, then they will remember. It's like a thorn in the eye. So he used to go to shul in the back of the houses. And if we had to go out anything, it's the children or my mother.
Now, you said when Hungary took over your area that school changed. Describe that again for us specifically.
Well, it's changed in a way that right away the Jewish children were put in the back seats with the gypsies. The gypsies were in the back and the Jewish children were in the back. And to participate, they didn't care to listen to us if we raised our hands to participate in the learning.
Now, as a child, when this happened, did you question this? Did you begin?
We knew it. We knew it. We knew what's going on. I remember when the Hungarian army marched in, they were singing Hungarian songs. We understood. And they were singing about the Jewish people that something like whoever has a Jewish girlfriend should put a rope on his neck and hang himself. And my mother grew up while Austro-Hungary. She started to cry. We were standing next to her. So we didn't understand it so much. But then she explained. She says, "Oh, it's not good. It's not good."
Did she have bad memories of anti-Semitism when she was a child in Austria-Hungary or not?
I don't think so. No, I never heard anything.
Yeah,
but when she heard that, you see, we were under the impression that the Hungarian will come in. We knew that it's not good, the Czech, because Hitler is doing it. But we were hoping, it looks like they were hoping, not so much the children, but they were hoping that the Hungarian regime will be nice to the Jews. But when she heard that song, she says, "Oh, it's not good, it's not good, it's very bad." And sure enough, that's what it started.
Did the population in town join in with the Hungarians, or were they indifferent?
Well, in the beginning they were indifferent, but some of them did show more anti-Semitism at this time than before. They did. My brothers also had what do you call them? Side locks. They used to pull on them.
Yes.
And they were little. They came home crying many times. Then later on, my father cut them because he didn't want them to suffer. So he cut it.
In Forest Hills, New York, conducted in English. Now, we were discussing the schooling under Hungary where you were separated. Now, you were placed in the back with gypsies, you mentioned.
Yes.
Did you know any I'm asking this because did you know any gypsies ahead of time? Was this a new thing?
Well, we knew them because they lived in the end of the town. They used to come into the town begging or some of them, the fathers were musicians, so if there was a wedding or anything, they used to come to play. So we knew them. We were not close to them. I mean, we had nothing to do with them, but we knew them.
But now you were thrust in with them as part of a outsider group?
We had nothing to do with them. We sat in the back because we had to. But once we came out of school, we had nothing to do with them. We didn't trust them. Some of them were stealing, I heard. So we had nothing to do with them.
Now, your father's grain business, what happened to this after?
Well, they took away the permit. He gave up the business. He couldn't do it. He was not allowed to do it. Not only him, they took away the permit from all the Jews in town. I think in 1940, I think they took it away. Nobody was allowed to do any business. We were told if we want to eat, we have to go to work in the fields.
Before I mention that, you mentioned that the permits were taken away in 1940.
Right.
Do you remember September 39 when the Germans invaded Poland, when the war really started to break out throughout Europe?
I remember from talking, but I don't actually remember reading it. I didn't read it.
It had no effect on your Hungarian part now.
Well, the effect was already before, even before.
So for you, the trouble starts before even World War
Yeah.
II starts, in a sense.
Yeah. When Germany marched into Poland, I remember lightly my father, vaguely, I mean, my father was talking about it. They were afraid that what's going on, what's happening. But so far we were safe yet, because they asked my father for the citizenship, but he was warned, try not to show your face, nothing will happen. So in a way we were still safe.
Now, your father was out of work, you were still in school, but how did the family survive? How did you eat?
We had to go to work in the fields.
What type of fields are we talking?
They were potato fields, corn fields. My mother we had a big garden. We had a big yard, and my mother planted vegetables and all kinds of vegetables. So we had all summer. We shouldn't have to buy. Milk we had to buy from the farmers. So in the beginning there was no problem. The Hungarians did not protest it. As long as you're working, because by that time the flour and bread was on, and sugar was on cards. Rationed. And if you didn't work, you can't get anything. So we had to go to work. So who went? We went, the children went. Not my brother so much, my sister and myself.
What about schooling?
We went to school and after school, and my mother went during the day to work. My father was afraid, but then in 1940 my father was taken into forced labor, and he was there for a year.
Where was
I think
he
for
taken?
about a year, in Hungary.
Deep into Hungary, away from you?
Away from us, not in our town. All the Jewish men were taken, I think, from those that reached 18 years until 50. All the Jewish men were taken to forced labor.
Were you able to correspond with him?
And yes, and he came home once for a visit. We didn't recognize him. We were not used to see him without a beard, without the locks. We just didn't recognize him. The only way we recognized is on the clothing. We knew what he is wearing. And I never forget we were standing, they came by bus because we didn't have a train station there. So he came home by bus. And we knew that he's coming, so we were waiting, my mother and the children. And he comes off the bus, so the older children, we recognized, my sister and myself, we recognized the clothing. We knew it's him. My younger sister, I don't know, but one of the brothers says, Mommy, that man sounds like my father, but he is not my father. He didn't recognize him. He just recognized the voice. So, anyhow, then...
What about your father's attitude or his feelings at that point? Did he come across as, I hate to, for lack of a better word, a beaten man? Was he depressed? Or what about even his faith? He was a very religious man.
He was a very religious man, and he was very hopeful that God will help, and we will survive. That's what he used to tell us also. You have to believe, you have to have faith. We will survive.
What about your mother through all this? Her husband was away for a year, and she must have had an immense responsibility.
Yeah, we were working. That's it, we were working. And we used to buy the milk, make our own butter, because we couldn't buy it. And as long as we were working on the field, in the fields, we got the cards, the coupons to buy the food. And we had in the garden, my mother she herself took care of it. She attended to it. We had a lot of potatoes and vegetables.
What about the Slovak population? Did they endure similar treatment at all?
Well, no, they did not. The only thing what they resented is that they were Slovaks and they had to learn Hungarian.
But otherwise their lives maintained the same.
No. They had their business, they had their fields, they had everything. I mean, they were businessmen also, Gentile. Not everybody was not all of them were farmers. But they had, no. The only thing was they resented is they liked better the Czech language, they liked better Czechoslovakia, but they did not suffer.
In this time, you were in school and working. Was there any free time? Was there any time to do anything of any enjoyment from your earlier years? Or was it one constant?
No. We were afraid. We were living in fright all the time because we knew that if a new law comes in, a stronger law, and they want the foreign citizens out, my father will be first. So we were living in fright all the time. And sure enough, in 1941, we saw something else that made us worry. We heard during the summer, I don't know, July or August or whenever, all night trucks coming into town, passing the town. So we looked out, we woke up, heavy trucks were carrying the Hungarians, were carrying Jewish men who were not citizens, or I don't know, they were accused or doing something, I don't know what, but they were carrying them to they called it in Hungarian to intern them. And that place where they were taking them was about 4 or 5 kilometers from our town, the Hungarian side. And all night we saw that. Then next day again, so only Jewish men. They were accused of something, I don't know what, but also some of them were not citizens. And then after that we used to go with bicycles. That time my bicycle learning came in handy. We used to take by bicycles food to them.
What was it like from what you saw?
Well, my mother was crying. My father, I don't know whether he was home, I don't remember. I think he must have been in the forced labor yet. I don't remember, but my mother, I remember crying. And we were worried, we were looking, we didn't know.
What did the camp look like?
We couldn't go in there.
You could only see the outskirts.
We just saw the outside, there was a fence, and but we were able to sneak in for food for them.
With Hungarian soldiers guarding it, or?
Yeah, Hungarians. But they were not all around, you know. There were times when, so we were standing, children. They didn't bother the children. The children were looking, and I had on a bicycle a basket, and when the soldiers went away, we gave it over to them.
Now this is early 41 or mid 41?
40. 1941, early 41. Yeah.
Were you
early, in middle, because I think it was either July or August.
Okay. Did you? You mentioned it's interesting. You mentioned July. Did you Were you able in any way to follow the war through the papers that you got in Hungary? Like, did you know that Germany invaded?
We knew, but we knew it. I don't know whether so much from the paper or from the radio. My father went to listen to the radio every day.
So
They listened to the BBC, so they knew what's going on.
Were you able to hear any information of what was happening to Jews in Poland and then later on in Russia in 41?
Auschwitz, if that's what you know,
Or anything.
we didn't know anything about it.
What about
We
just
only
treatment?
they only read, and I heard it from them, that a lot of Jews were taken to the Ukraine and killed there. They said that they were killed, and nobody believed it. It can't be in the 20th century, something like that. Not in this century, it can't be. We didn't believe it. Some people escaped. That's what they were talking. Some people escaped, and they said it, and they said that they're exaggerating. And then in 1942, in August, I don't remember the date, but in August, at 5 o'clock in the morning, they came knocking on our door. My father was home already. That time he came home. They were already let him go home from the labor camp. And they came knocking the police that we have to go. We are not citizens, and they can't keep us here any longer. So from the vicinity, all the Jews, whoever they considered not a citizen, they were taken by horse and buggy. We had 15 minutes time to take along whatever we can in 15 minutes.
Including your mother, who was of Hungarian citizenship?
Yeah, but she was legally married. See, that was the difference. She was legally married. So we were taken on a horse and buggy. And then I remember one of the neighbors came out, and he was crying. He says, not Mr. Well, they called us Frieden. Not him. But
A
they
Jewish
didn't
neighbor
help.
or Slovak neighbor?
Slovak neighbor. The Jewish neighbors were afraid to come out. So anyhow, they took us, and one of the policemen, the one who always came to tell my father he should not show his face, was very nice. He came over to us, to the wagon, a few times, because they were taking us to, I think I gave you the name Sátoraljóhely, that the ghetto was. They were taking us there. That was the closest, now that it became Hungary, that was the closest train station. So they were taking us to the train station. And he came many times during the day, because they were going slowly. He said, I want to tell you the reason why we are going slowly, because we are waiting for another law to come in. Any minute they could change the law. And if we bring you to the train, you will be in the train. Before the law comes, forget about it. They will take you out to the Ukraine. That's when we knew where they are taking us. But if you will be yet on the wagons, then we will be able to turn the wagon back and bring you back.
So in other words, at the time, laws would change by the minute?
By the minute. By the minute. In Hungary. I'm talking about Hungary.
I mean, where did the laws come from? Budapest? They came
From
wherever
Budapest.
they
From
wanted?
Budapest, yeah. From Budapest. But who was making the laws? I don't know. Anyhow, we were slowly going, and they were collecting other people, and we arrived to the train station in the evening.
Was it a panic situation? Was there screaming? Was it chaotic?
Crying.
But organized?
Organized. Well, everybody was afraid because the police was all over. So
Nobody
we were
would be,
afraid.
there was no shooting,
No, because nobody did anything,
So you arrived in the evening?
And when we arrived there, so he comes over smiling, he says, what did I tell you? Those people that were already in, and they're moving, not just in, but the train was moving, they left. These people who were not put in the train yet were going home. So he said, we're going home, we're not going anyplace. But he said, be ready any day or any minute the law will change and they will take you.
So for that moment in 42, that policeman saved your life.
Yeah. Well, not only us,
All
that
of the
whole
people
group,
in the town. So now when you went home, did you change your lives in any way, or there was nothing else you could do? It was just a matter of waiting?
Just waiting, we can do nothing. There was nothing, no place to run. Because by that time, yeah, it was 1942, we already heard that in Czechoslovakia, the Jews were already deported.
So you heard of deportation, but
yes.
just not knowing where they were going?
We didn't know first where they were going. My father had the sister who they forced out with 8 children, who they put in 1939, the border. She was there in Czechoslovakia, another sister with 8 children, and another sister with 4 children, and a brother with 2 children. They were all taken away. My mother had sisters there.
That was a question I wanted to ask. Were you able to correspond with these people?
We got from them, I remember, one letter from Treblinka.
From Treblinka
From
itself?
Treblinka, we got a letter.
How do you know it said, it actually, a postcard saying they were in Treblinka?
It said. They said that they are in a town, in a camp called Treblinka, and so far we are all together. But what tomorrow, something like that, I don't remember exactly, but something to that, that they are together and they don't know what tomorrow brings. That was the last letter, the only letter.
But no mention of what was going on?
No, they didn't write it. No, they would not have let the letter through. They couldn't bring. But we found out after the war that my mother, who had 2 sisters in Czechoslovakia, were also there. I don't know whether they knew each other, but they were in the same camp, and nobody ever heard from them. Nobody came back from there.
So now, throughout 42, it was a matter of a waiting period. When did things change again for you?
Well, we were suffering through those years because the Hungarians forbid the Jews should buy milk, even milk from the Gentiles. We were not allowed to, they stopped it.
Were you still in school?
No, the Jewish people, the Jewish children, no.
Right, when did they stop
I think in 42 they stopped it, just before they were deporting us, something about that time. And so we did not, they wouldn't let us go to school. And the only thing we were able to do was work. We were working in the fields, and then in 1943 we had no milk. Children needed milk. My father bought a goat because we had no way to feed a cow, and the children needed milk. My mother was crying, and we got a goat, and we had a little milk from the goat for the younger children. In 1944, in 1943, that summer, we had no bread. We couldn't get any bread. We couldn't get any flour. So we ate potatoes all summer. We were living on potatoes. And then one Gentile, an next-door neighbor, was sorry. So he sold us on like the black market, like they would say here in the black market, sold us bread.
But they had, I have a question. It's 43 at this point.
Yeah.
Were the Jews still living mixed amongst the population?
Yes.
So you would live side by side with Slovaks who were living relatively
As a matter of fact,
well.
we were sharing one, it's a big courtyard, and we were sharing with
But
Gentiles.
they didn't live nearly in the situation that you did.
No. So they were able to, if they were in the mood, they gave us bread, they sold us bread, not gave us, but
you
sold
wouldn't
us.
say that the Slovak population was so anti-Semitic against you? They were more just in...
Some of them were, but we had, I don't remember, I had nothing to do with them, I don't know. These who were next door, they were not the nicest people, but they were all right. They didn't do anything for us, against us.
And was your father still able to keep track of the war?
Yeah.
And he...
Yeah.
So you knew you were living in a country that was actually sided with Germany in the war?
Yes, we knew that. And in 1944, in March 15, I think it was March 15, Germans came into Hungary.
Okay, now when the change with the government there, were you able to know what was going on when the Hungarian government fell apart before the Germans came in?
We heard. I don't know where my father heard it, whether from radio or newspapers. I don't remember that. But I remember hearing talking.
Even earlier, did he know, even in 43, that the war was going in the other direction for the first time?
He knew.
Okay, now
He
was that maybe some of the reason there was more hope in him?
Could be. Could be.
Now, did he relay it to the family?
Yes, because every day, I remember every day he went to listen to the BBC.
And then brought it back to the
And
family?
then brought it back, not only to the family, but to his friends also. They were talking in the house in front of us, so we knew what's going on. And in 1944, when in March the Germans came into Hungary, then it started very bad. Then they were picking up the Jewish people, anyone. We were told, I don't know, that they took them to bunkers, they beat them, they cut off their beards, they wanted money, they were looking for gold.
Where were you when they first marched in to your town?
No, they did not march into our town.
Okay,
they
marched into Budapest.
Budapest. Yeah, and they.
But you knew they came into
They
town.
forced us to wear this. I forgot. They forced us to wear armbands with Mogundovad, the yellow Mogundovad on it.
This is after the Germans marched
After,
in.
yeah, and we were not able, even children, everybody, no matter how young, you were not able to go out on the street without it. If they caught you without it, you were beaten up.
Now, when the Germans took over in March 44, were there German soldiers in your town?
I didn't see any.
Okay, so the only information came through the Hungarians to you.
Through my father, through
But I mean the restrictions, the
Yeah.
armbands, all.
Yes, from the police, through the police. And this was in March, and then a few weeks later was Pesach. And I remember the last day of Pesach was on Shabbos, and Sunday morning, and everybody was depressed because the news were very bad. And the morning after Pesach, Sunday morning, 5:15, they came to pick us up. They took everybody, all the Jews, also on horse and buggy. We were told not to take anything. We couldn't take anything. We had no bread in the house. We couldn't take anything. Clothing, what we had, maybe another change of clothing. And they chased us out of the house. Leave everything and go. Put us on the horse and buggy. And I remember the two neighbors came out crying, bringing bread to us.
Slovak.
To us, the Slovak neighbors, to our family. Says, you can't, and they were crying. One of them was crying. You can't take somebody like that, like my father. But anyhow, they took us to the ghetto. That time they took us to the ghetto.
Where was the ghetto?
In Hungary proper. It's you want to know the name?
Yes.
Sátoralja you have.
You know how to spell it?
Yeah. Sator, capital A, L, J, A, no. Capital U, I'm sorry, it's not an A, capital U, H, J, H, E, L. Yeah.
And how far away from where you were?
It was about 24 kilometers. They put us all, now it's already from all the Jews from the whole vicinity. They took us to a big shul. They emptied out the shul, and they took us in there. And said, all right, you have a bundle, whatever, you had another change of clothing. And wait here. All around, police, Hungarian police. And they were going, I don't know, according to what, taking us into the ghetto. They had emptied out houses where most of the Jews lived. This is a city. This is a bigger city. They emptied out the houses, and they took us into the empty houses. Each family, a group of families, So we were given an apartment. There were 2 rooms and a kitchen. Each family had 1 room. So we were in the room, it was empty, just straw on the floor. The kitchen was empty, so another family was in the kitchen, and another family was in the other room. No food, nothing. But then they organized a kitchen, a community kitchen. But I don't remember when we started to get, next day I guess, we had to go to pick the food up. And ghetto was closed. They were boarded up. The gate was closed, and nobody was allowed to go out. We were there for 4 weeks in the ghetto.
Basically just sitting in the apartment?
Yeah. Well, my father didn't sit. My father went out. He wanted to hear the news, wanted to know what's doing. But I don't remember exactly how, whether we were going for the food, the children. I think the children must have gone for the food, to bring the food from the community kitchen. Because we had no way to cook, we had nothing to cook with, we had nothing.
And no information from the outside?
Well, he brought the information. How he got it there, I don't know.
What did he find out?
He found out that not only us, we were taken to the ghetto, that all the Jews in Hungary were taken to ghettos. But whether he knew more, I don't think so. I don't know. I didn't hear from him anything more. Whether what they will do with us, we didn't know.
But you knew it wasn't anything. You knew it was only going to get worse? Was that the feeling of just total confusion?
We were afraid. We were just afraid. We didn't know what's waiting for us. But they didn't know. We didn't know that we will be taken away someplace else. We didn't know.
You were still guarded strictly by Hungarians, correct?
Yes, Hungarian police. Then 4 weeks we were in the ghetto. 4 weeks later, they came again, the Hungarian. Now they were going house by house out. But that time we already knew that because they were taking us by groups. I don't know how many thousands of people in one group. And there were a group taken before us from the ghetto. So we knew that they taking us someplace, but we didn't know where. We knew that they took them someplace, and eventually they will come for us.
Roth by Scott Fried, in English, in her home in Forest Hills, New York, United States. Now, you were saying 4 weeks after being in the ghetto, were all the families taken, or just yours, and it was one by one?
No. Each house, each building, one by one, taken to the shul, and a whole group, I don't know, a transport, I don't know how many people were in the transport. They went from one street to the other, emptying out all the houses, all the buildings. So we were in the second transport from that ghetto.
You were taken by horse and buggy again?
No, we were marched. We were marched to the shul, and from shul, it was on a Shabbos, and Shabbos morning, and
in May or late April? Probably about
no,
May.
it was May 20th. That I remember was May 20th. Remember, we were in the ghetto 4 weeks. I don't know whether to the date, but 4 weeks. And then we were taken to shul. And Shabbos, that afternoon, they told us to line up by 5. Everybody, whatever you have, not big things. We had nothing anymore. So we were marched. Also with the Hungarians. We were marched for about, I don't know, a mile and a half or 2 miles, something like that. I don't remember exactly. Hurry up, go fast, every minute. Don't walk slow, go fast. Old men, young men, children. And we were marched up to in the open field. There were trains parked there, cattle trains. We came there, that's where we saw the German soldiers, the SS. They took over from the Hungarians.
Now, was that immediately different?
Well, everybody was scared. We didn't know, we came there, so they started to yell at us, we should go in.
Could you speak German?
If you speak Yiddish, you understand German. It's very similar. So even if you...
So you could understand
what they're saying. And they were yelling that we should hurry up in the train, fast. No, it wouldn't answer no question. If somebody wanted to ask something, just go, no questions asked. And rushed us in, about 75 people, something like, we were packed. That I know. There was no place to stretch out.
Could you breathe? Was there air? Enough air to go?
There was on top a small little window, a narrow window. There was a pail, 2 pails there. One pail was with water and one was empty. They told us that the empty one is if you have to go to the bathroom. And everybody sat down. And everybody, the children wanted to be near the parents, yeah? They were sitting there.
The whole family was intact?
So far, yeah. As soon as it
Was this the evening?
In the afternoon.
Okay.
In the afternoon. And as soon as the wagon was filled up, they closed the door, had an iron board, closed it up that we shouldn't be able to run away. And I don't know how long we were standing there. Then the wagons started to move. They started to go. And
you had no idea where you were going?
No. I remember men who were tall were picked up, or they picked up the children to look where we are as the trains were going, to see a station or a town or a name or something. We realized later that we went through Slovakia. And then I remember we had no more water. We were in the wagons from Saturday afternoon, Shabbos afternoon, until Tuesday morning.
With no food and very little water?
No, just the water. We didn't have water anymore. The next day. So somebody realized that it's raining. And my father picked me up. I was very small and skinny. Picked me up. We had a cup. I don't remember where that cup came from. Somebody must have taken it. And he picked me up on his shoulder, and I stretched out my hand through the window with a cup, getting rainwater to drink. So that's when I looked out the window, I saw that we were in Slovakia yet, and Gentiles people were standing there looking. So one of them, a man, went like that. What he meant, we didn't know. I told them what I saw, but what that meant, because we didn't stop. The train was going not so fast, but was moving, and that's it. Then at night, I don't know, somebody either saw or he says it's Krakow. We're in Krakow, so that's Poland. The train was going, and this was at night, very fast. This is in my ears, the way we must have been going through a bridge, through a river, because you can hear the wheels. It was very scary. The children started to cry, but there was nothing to do. Nobody could do anything. And at night, that was Monday night, we stopped. Where we stopped, we didn't know. We stopped. And we heard at night screaming and crying loud. So what's going on? Where did they bring us? Where is this? So somebody said, it looks like they brought an asylum. with crazy people. That's how it sounded. And the morning when they opened up the...
So all night you were
We were
stopped,
standing.
but sitting inside the...
Yeah, I don't know what time at night we arrived, but it was during the night. It was dark. We were sitting there and just heard those noises. We didn't know what it is. And then the daylight, when it's great, they opened up the wagons. That's the first time we saw men with striped suits. We didn't know who they are. Then one of them said something in Yiddish to my father. So we realized that they are Jews. My father had, you know what tefillin?
Sure.
My father had a tefillin. This he carried always with him. So he had it there and he took it. So the guy says to him, I don't think you will need it. Don't carry it, because the Germans were yelling from outside her house, everybody out, don't take anything with you, nothing with you. But people don't always listen, and he wanted to take this. So that one said to him, he was a Polish guy, a Polish Jew, he says, don't take it, don't start out with them, don't take it, you won't need it.
What could you see in the beyond the people?
When we came off the train, the minute we stepped off the cattle train, we saw a sign, Arbeit macht frei.
Work sets you free.
That's right. We didn't know where we are. We just saw this. So somehow this gave you a lift, that it brought us to work. And if you will be working...
Could you see a camp in the background?
Very far. We didn't know what's far. The only thing we had no time even to look. I don't know. Maybe some people might have.
It was more like a train station, which was in a distance away from...
but it was in the field someplace. Far away, we saw some, like a little forest and some people there. What was going on there, we didn't know. But over here, you didn't even have time to think, because they were yelling, the Germans, the SS, Russian, Russian, Russian. Don't stop and go. The men separate and the women separate. Men should take along the boys, children, any child, no matter how old, boys. And the woman should take the children, no matter how old, girls.
So this was the last chance you saw your father?
So that was the last time I saw my father.
In a rush, not a...
In a rush. No, you couldn't say goodbye, nothing, because they were pushing away. They moved us, they were rushing us. Just suddenly my mother turns around and she says to my sister, would you take a look whether the brothers are with your father? So she went back a few steps looking whether she is there, and I was walking with my mother and my sister, my younger sister. She was on my mother's left side and I was on my mother's right side. And they were yelling, we were marching, we were almost the last ones from the group. We came to a group of SS men. One of them was I remember that, very good-looking guy. Why do I remember it? I'll tell you later. And they all had dogs, big dogs with them. And the middle one, the one who was the good-looking one, just went with his arm to the right or to the left. So my mother was waved to the left with my sister, and I was waved to the right.
This is who you later found out was Mengele?
Yeah.
So from your description, you didn't know who he was, but
no,
you
you didn't,
knew he
but
was very handsome.
I met him 2 weeks later, so then I knew who he is.
Then we'll get back to that.
So they told me he didn't talk, just waved the hand. So he waved me to the right. There was already a group of women there, and I was so confused, from all the hunger and from the thirst and from the traveling and from the rushing and from yelling. You didn't know what hits you. He told me this way, waved me this way, so I went there. And I didn't even look where my sister is or nothing. My mother was waved there. I couldn't think. And suddenly I hear, a few minutes later, I hear the girls, the women from the group, don't start out with him. I take a look, it's my sister. The older sister was sent back. So she came by herself after us. And she saw my mother going. She didn't see me. She came to him, to Mengele, so Mengele told her to go to the right. But she saw my mother going there. So she says to him, this is meine Mutter. That's my mother. she wanted to go there. So they took off one of the soldiers the gun, and it started the dog against her. So that's when the woman started to say, don't start that because he will shoot you. So now after that she told me many times, she saw that my mother doesn't even look back. So she said, what will I go? He will shoot me anyhow. I don't know where they're taking her. I don't know where they're taking me. So she turned around and she came to the side where Mengele was pointing. And that's when she met me.
And by going in that direction, it
yeah, so
life.
Those people who went to the left, they were all killed right away. They went straight to the crematorium.
But that second was the last you saw of your mother. So now it really was just the only person who was left was you and the older sister?
My sister, yeah, older sister. And so we were taken from there, marched to, they called it showers. The bed, big building, they had showers in there. So there was a big courtyard, very big, with big buildings, and
did you see more people at this point? More
there
prisoners?
There were young ladies there already.
Okay.
Those were from 1942. We found out later that they came Polish or Slovakian, from Czechoslovakia, who were taken in 1942.
So you could speak with them?
Yeah, some of them spoke Hungarian, some of them spoke Yiddish, so we spoke Yiddish, some of them spoke Slovak. So but we were not allowed to talk. The SS was standing on top on you. You were not allowed to talk.
Was it SS women and men or just men?
No, over there just men. Okay. Just men. And they lined us up one by one, undressed completely. Everything in a heap, shoes, everything in a heap. And from there we had to go. Well, first they said to everybody to undress. Then they lined us up as we were naked. Lined us up, and the girls, the young girls who were there, came with scissors and a machine to cut the hair. They cut the hair completely. We were bald. And then further on, they cut the rest of the hair on the body. Other girls.
From head to toe.
Yeah. And after that, they took us to the showers. We took a shower. And
what type of shower? Was it?
It was coming from the ceilings. Many showers, because we were a lot of people in there.
A disinfectant, a cold shower?
Yeah. I don't remember whether it was cold, but it was disinfectant, I know that. And then we were told one by one, they closed the door to the shower and opened up the shower. And later we found out that the crematorium was the same way. But we didn't know. Anyhow, they told us to line up one by one, and everybody was given some kind of dress and a pair of shoes. And we were lined up in 5 and marched.
Still, was your sister with you in the 5?
Yeah. Just the sister. Nobody else. From the group, we knew some people who were from our town because they came the same way with us, so we saw them. But we came out of the showers, we didn't recognize ourselves. We didn't know. We came, so they marched us. We were by 5 going. And we were going through a field to a camp. And one of the women, the grass was very tall. One of the women ran out of the group. Who the woman was, I don't know, but we saw her running, and then we saw shots. They killed her. So, and we were taken to a camp. The name was Gypsy Camp. That's what it was called, because before that, before we came, a week before, there were gypsies there. They exterminated the gypsies.
No, you didn't. Did you
We
know?
didn't know
Okay.
that. We didn't know. We came in there. They just told us that we came. They divided 1,000 girls, 1,000 women to each block. A building, they called it block. And each block had a woman, a young woman, they called it blockelkester. So the one with us, who was our blockelkester, we were taken to block 11, number 11. the Blockeltester told us her name is Alice, and she comes from Kežmarok in Czechoslovakia, in Slovakia.
Was she a Jew?
Yeah, yeah. Then later she told us that she was there already since 1942 in Auschwitz. That's when we found out that we are in Auschwitz. So from...
Did that mean anything to you?
No, we didn't know what
You
it
didn't
is.
know.
But from her we found out later. At night, so anyhow we came to the block, there were bunkers, not bunk beds, 3, one on top of each other. And they told us to go to everybody to 12 to a bunk bed.
12 to each bed.
To each bed. And there were people who started to complain to her. So then she started saying, listen, what do you think? They brought you here for vacation? They didn't bring you here on vacation, for vacation. They brought you here to work, or they brought you here to kill. And we didn't believe it. We thought that she's mean.
But she wasn't comparatively. She didn't beat the people who complained?
Well, she beat me up once she beat me on my face. Why? Every day, early in the morning, it was dark yet, we had to get up to stand in line. They called it Sélapel.
Right.
They were counting us. And for hours, because in each camp there were 32 blocks. Each block had 1,000 women, so 32,000. Until they finished counting the SS, all the 32,000, you were supposed to stand in attention. You were not supposed to talk, you were not supposed to eat. First of all, the first day we had nothing to eat, but later on. So, and once, I was in Auschwitz for 3 months. So this Blockeltester announced, I don't know, the 30 or the 40 or a few days later, that she wants to make sure that her block will be considered as a working block. This way we will have a more chance to get out of Auschwitz alive. She showed us, you see the chimneys there? We saw the chimneys there, we saw smoke, we smelled smoke, but we didn't know what it is. Then we realized that it's flesh, because the smell and hair. So she told us what it is. She says, look, that's no vacation. So anyhow, she said that she wants her block to be considered as working block, so we used to go every morning and every evening to the main kitchen, heavy iron, I don't know what you call them in English.
Like a vat.
Yeah, where you carried the food. So it wasn't food, it was really some kind of junky soup. Vico used to call it dish, whatever, you wash the dishes, the dirty
Dishwashing
liquid, that's what they gave us.
Dishwater.
The dishwater. And in the evening they used to give us a small slice of bread. The bread looked like a brick, black, but very small, about 2 inches to 2.5 inches wide. That was supposed to have for a whole day, for the following day. Enough until the next evening, until they gave you out bread again. So she accomplished that much that we used to go. Every day she announced, she asked for volunteers to go and schlep those things, the food, not only to our block, but to the other blocks. And across the road, there was another block who had no kitchen at all. So carried the food over there too. And one day, I was very, very hungry. So they gave out the bread. You have the bread in the hand and you are so hungry. So I broke off a piece and put it in my mouth. And she noticed it. You're not allowed to. So she came over and she gave me 2 flaps on my face because I did it.
Was this common?
Oh, that was common. It was common.
I have a question. The first night and the subsequent nights, what was a night like in that bunk? You mentioned 12 to a bed, but what would go on at night?
Yeah, you couldn't lay on your back. You had to lay sideways. And if one wanted to turn, and it's brick, it's not brick, wooden boards. If one person couldn't stand it anymore, it was hurting, we had to turn, then the whole row, everybody had to turn. All the 12 had to turn.
How did the women act towards each other? You're in a situation with very little food.
Well, that much I can tell you, that we got the bread. So where do you put the bread? At night, in the evening, you got the bread, the slice of bread. We put it under the head because we were hoping that that's the way it survives. They stole from me many times the bread. Who stole it, I don't know. But it must have been somebody from the block.
Were there fights in the bunks?
Not that I remember, no. We were there 2 weeks. On, I think, on a Sunday, one day, the Blockeltester announced.
What did you do during those 2 weeks? Just nothing? You sat,
nothing. Well, in the morning and in the evening, we were standing sail-upper for hours.
But beyond that, you just were in the bunks?
Yeah. Or going, we had no bathroom there. We had to go to the bathroom to another.
How did you pass the time?
Talking, I guess. Going out, looking around where we are, what's, to see whether we meet somebody, friends, or anybody who knows. Because we didn't know at that time yet that our parents were. So anyhow, we were there a week. That's I in a gypsy lager. They announced one morning. She announced the Blockeltester that they will change our camp. We will be moving.
2 weeks?
1 week.
1 week.
1 week. We will be moving to the C-lager, Lager C. In the same block, number 11, she's coming with us, but they will be moving. Until then, that lager used to be for men. Now they're taking the men out of there. They're bringing the men in this lager, and we are taking that. So around noontime, she said that we have to stay up again. They will give us bread. But we should eat the bread sparingly because you won't get anything till tomorrow evening. No food, nothing till tomorrow evening, so watch your bread. But that night we were still in the gypsy camp. That night they stole my bread. I had nothing. My sister had. Hers was not stolen. We shared that little bread, whatever it was. And then the following day we were marched to the other camp. It took a whole day until because 32,000 men, 32,000 women. And the next day, they started to bring in the bread for everybody, put us in sail-appel. And so just when they came to the number 9, the bread was all out. They didn't have already for us. And I was so hungry. I thought that I'll collapse. It was only a week, but you didn't eat during that week, either whatever you had, that little bread. So I just walking around like in the days around the block to pass the time, hoping that they will bring the bread soon for us too. From the number 9, they had the bread, so one young lady was sitting by the wall of the block eating her bread. And the crumbs was falling in her lap. And I never would have asked anybody, but I felt that I am passing out. I walked over to her and said, listen, I don't want the bread. Give me just the crumbs. What's in your lap? Those crumbs saved me. Those few crumbs what she gave me saved me. I felt when I swallowed them that my strength is coming back. And we were there another week, 1 week in the Seelager. So she came in one day and she announced that we will have visitors. She says, I don't know whether you heard of him or you know him. His name is Mengele. If you remember when you arrived, he was there waving which side to go. I want to warn you not to complain. If he asks you anything, tell him that you are satisfied. If he asks you whether they treat you good or treat you bad, say yes, they treat you good, don't complain. Well, he came in. That's when I saw that he was a very good-looking man. came in and looked around, and he said, started, so how are you? How are they treating you? Do you have any complaints? Do you have any wishes? And somebody, I don't know, I don't know, didn't know all the people there, somebody said, we would like to see our parents. That's the complaint. No complaint. We would like to see our parents. So he says, oh, you will see your parents next Sunday. You will see your parents. And the Blockhälteste, when she heard that this one yells out, she became so pale. So anyhow, he was laughing, smirking.
Would you say this Alice was looking out for the block the whole time?
Yeah. She was afraid for her life. That's why she slapped me,
right.
Because she was afraid of her life also. Plus, if the SS would have seen it, maybe he would have killed me. I don't know. But she was looking out.
So now he left.
He left. After he left, she started to yell. She said, what do you think? That's when she was yelling. Do you think they brought you here on vacation? Do you believe you know who he is? You don't know who he is. He's the worst of the worst. Says, your parents are not alive anymore. Your parents are there in the chimney. You see the chimney, the smoke? That's where your parents are. And if you want to keep your mouth shut, you will wind up there too. Anyhow, we were there a month. So she accomplished this much that usually when they were selecting, you heard about the selections. They were selecting one by one. She accomplished that her block was a working block, and it should be taken as it is to work out of Auschwitz. Because she kept on telling us every day, get out of here as soon as possible. Get out. So anyhow, about a month later, they came, the SS men. And once in a while we saw SS women also already in the camp, counting us. SS women came also. And but the assessment, mostly assessment, and said, okay, this block will go as it is to work. We'll take them to the train. But before they did it, 3 of them, an SS woman and 2 SS men, just walked. We were lined up by 5, and I was always pushed in the back to be the 5th in the back because I was very skinny, very small and very skinny. So those that were, my sister was a little taller and a little more developed than me. So she was always standing in front of me, and some other women who were stronger were in the front. And he went through the two assessment with the woman, just marching in front of the lines and pointing. I was one pointed out. He saw that these are small and skinny, out of the line. So
Gottfried in English in Forest Hills, New York, United States. Now, you were being marched, and you and 2 other smaller girls were taken out of the line by the SS, you were mentioning?
No, 9 other people, young girls and elderly women. And I couldn't talk. I started to cry. We knew that it's not good. I started to cry, and they asked me, do you have here any family? I didn't want to say that my sister is there because I knew that if I was taken out, that's not a good sign. Why kill her too? But she came out. She came out and she announced that she's my sister. So now we were 10. We were taken to block number 12. It was famous for children's block. That block was emptied out every night. The children were killed. We knew that. So we were taken to that block. And the rest of the group in the block 11, they were locked up until they come to take them to the trains. Nobody was able to go to them. Nobody was able to talk to them, to see them. They locked them up. And we were in that block. in number 12. So we knew that if we'll sleep over one night there, that will be it. So we started to look around. We were able to walk around in the camp, and we snuck in another block. We were there one night, we slept there one night, then we didn't like it. The people were very, very mean, very yelling, screaming at each other in that block. So we were trying to fit in wherever we were able to. And we were walking around like that from one block to another, sleeping every night someplace else for about a month more. Then one day they announced that they looking for nice hands and nice eyes. So, okay, they're not looking for muscles. They're not looking for skinny or not. So we lined up with those. So many people lined up. We came to the, one by one, we came to the soldier, SS soldier, so he has to stretch out your hand, looking, turn them over, look in your eyes. No, doesn't want us. We don't have nice hands and we don't have nice eyes. We went back to the end of the line, standing again. Thought maybe our luck will be. 3 times we went. And the 3rd time when we came to the soldier, so he says loud, "Diese waren schon hier 3 Mal." It means that these were here already 3 times. He recognized it, but he didn't take us. So, and again, went back again. And we didn't stand in the line anymore after that. About a few days later, there was selection again. They were selecting in other blocks. We got in there, standing there. They announced that they will select only 200 people, not the whole 1,000 girls, 200 people. So we tried our luck there. I was always in the front. My sister was behind me. If they will select me, she was hoping that she will be selected because she was stronger. Anyhow, they did not select me. They threw me out. So those 200 people were put in the block, locked in the block. And the rest of us were outside. And suddenly we see 2 girls standing inside by the window, and a mother with one daughter standing outside crying. The girls are crying, they would like to come out and to change with somebody. We were willing to change, to go in. So we went to the Blockelteste, but we couldn't go in, it was locked. So we went to the Blockelteste and asked her, "These 2 people want to come out, we want to go in." She was afraid, she wouldn't let us, she was playing with her life. If she did it, she was afraid they will notice, whatever. She didn't do it. So, and they left. The block, those 200 people left, and at that time we remained here, in that block. That was our home now. And we were there for about another month. One day, the Lagerälteste, you heard about the Lagerälteste, not the Blockelteste, from the whole lager. Very, very mean. She was Jewish, very mean. Piri, but I don't know her last name. I don't know who she was. She had red hair, I remember that, and very, very mean. Yelling with, she had a little stick she was hitting. Anyhow, she came in one day. They said it's Shabbos. Well, I don't know what it was. We lost track already. She came in and she announced that 60 girls are needed to transport. These girls, volunteers, they will go to the train. We didn't believe her. We didn't believe. Nobody volunteered because nobody believed her. Suddenly the Blockelteste comes over to our bunk. She remembered us. Comes over, she says, "Why don't you volunteer? I remember you wanted so much to get out of Auschwitz. Now is the time you'll get out. Volunteer." So her we believed. So we got off the bed, we volunteered. After that, some other people. So they took us, two German SS, took us to the showers, took away the clothing from us, we took a shower and gave us other clothing. I was so happy because I got a heavy dress, heavy wool dress, loose, so it didn't show that I'm so skinny, with long sleeves, so it covered it. Anyhow, and they said, rush, 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 we have to rush to the station. We came to the station, they gave us a slice of bread. That was the first time we saw margarine after being there 3 months. That was 3 months in Auschwitz. Gave us margarine and a piece of, and a little piece of jelly. And we were standing now again in line, going up to the train.
Sister still with you?
The sister with me, but we were not the last ones. There were those people who were the volunteers. And suddenly, as we're standing already about as far from the train, entrance to the train, like from here to the window, one SS man comes over to me and catches me by the sleeves, and he says, "Diese hat nicht keine Kräften." That means that I don't have muscles. I can't work, because these were sent out to work. I started to cry. I knew what the end is. And my sister started to tell them that, she didn't say that she's a sister, that she knows me and I used to work in the field and I have muscles and I'm strong. And somebody else, who I never knew who it is, somebody from the other people also stated that she knows me. So then he waved with a hand, let her go. That's how I escaped Auschwitz. And we were in the train for 3 days. We didn't know where they were taking us. It was a long, long train. They detached a lot during the time. Finally, we came to where we stopped and we got out of the train. It was called Fallersleben, another working. This was a working lager.
Late summer of 1944.
Yeah, I think it was in September.
Do you have any knowledge of the war? Like any information here and there?
In Auschwitz, we saw many times.
In Soviet planes?
Yes, and we saw that the American, but they didn't do anything. We were praying that they should drop a bomb. They didn't do anything. Okay. And we arrived to Fallersleben. And there we were put in a building where workers used to be. It was a very big munition factory that they took us to work. So the factory was on the other side, across the street, a little further, and here was the building where the the workers used to live there or whatever when they were working. So everybody was given bunk bed, but one to each bed. Everybody was given a comb. That was the first time. Everybody was given a spoon and a bowl. What we didn't have that in Auschwitz. In Auschwitz, and they were giving out the soup. Everybody had just to drink from one after the other. And they told us that we shouldn't be afraid. We will be working here.
SS people in charge again?
Yes, men, SS men. And everybody got a blanket. So that's it. And then we told us they don't want us anything to do now. We can't go out.
This was now in Eastern Germany?
It was East Germany. We can't go out. There was a big door, an iron door. We couldn't go out. But they said that we're not going to work today. We just could look around or meet friends or talk. Tomorrow they will tell us what to do. The next day, other SS men came, and it was announced that he's a doctor. This one is a doctor, and we have to go one by one. There was one section where they called it a river, where if somebody was not feeling well, it's not a hospital, like a clinic.
An infirmary, sort of? An infirmary?
Yeah, like infirmary. A doctor was picked from among us. She was there. And then when this German doctor came, the SS, so they said that time they came already women SS2 with him. And they announced that they will be looking us over. So we got scared again because we know what looking over is. So we didn't want to be again, we were afraid that they will send us back to Auschwitz. So we decided, my sister and myself, that we'll stay behind. Maybe the quota will be filled up, whatever they need for workers, and they will leave those alone in the bunk, in the camp, in the block. So anyhow, but they didn't. They went one by one. We had to undress, and he looked. He checked whether anybody has a rash or anything. The hair was checked, whether we have lice. We didn't have long hair yet, very short, but there was already a little. And when my turn came, I think behind me there were 4 or 5 young girls, also as skinny and small as me, who also didn't want to be, were afraid. Anyhow, my turn came, so he checked me. He says, "Diese bleibt zurück," he tells to the SS woman. So I started to cry again. I thought, okay, this is the end. They can take him back to Auschwitz. My sister started to cry also. She says, "No, we want to be together. Why do you say back?" So he looks at her and looks at me and looks at everybody. He says to her in German, but we understood, "What's going on? What are they so afraid?" So then he asked us, "What are you afraid? Why do you insist that she should go to work? She doesn't have any muscle. She can't work." So he says, so she says, "We don't want to go back where we came from." So he asking her, "Where did we come from?" Auschwitz. I don't know whether they didn't know anything about Auschwitz or they didn't want to know. He didn't say anything. And he says, "Listen, somebody has to clean the blocks. So those who are so small and skinny, they can't work in the factory. This is an ammunition factory. It's hard to work there. So she will be here cleaning." So that's how I escaped the ammunition factory. My sister went, and I was working here. And
so you were on cleaning detail.
Cleaned. We had to sweep up. We had to wash up. So then a few days later, next day, that same day, they brought us very good food. After Auschwitz, very good food. We had potatoes in it, we had some meat in it, had some vegetables in it. Everybody has his own bowl.
Was it just Jewish workers here, or were there?
Just Jewish. Just Jewish. We never came in contact with...
Russian
in the
prisoners of
factory,
war.
in the factory, those people who went to the factory,
They ran into others.
they were, because the foremen were not Jewish, were French, or my daughter must have. They were not French, not German, they were French. They met Czechoslovakia, somebody from Czechoslovakia, but not Jews.
So now how long were you there?
We were there from April until, from September until April next year.
You were liberated from this camp?
No.
Okay, you were taken again.
We were taken to another camp. The name is Salzwedel. And
what was the circumstances surrounding that?
where?
Why were you taken to Salzwedel?
Well, the bombs were already there. We were taken many times to the bunkers there. They were saving us from the bunker, there were 2 shifts there, working nights. One shift were working nights, one shift were working days in the concentration camp, in that concentration camp. And we had already the Wehrmacht, not SS soldiers, but Wehrmacht soldiers.
When did it switch that the Wehrmacht?
In the beginning, we were there a few, I don't know, just about a week or 2, maybe 3 weeks, I don't remember, but it was changed.
Now the treatment was different, I assume.
But the SS women were there. Just the SS men
okay.
left. The SS women were there. And then we were there for about 4 months or so. First, when we arrived, they picked one woman to be the Blockälteste among us, and her sister became the Lagerälteste. And we were there for about 4 months. One day, my sister was in the night shift, working in the factory, and I was here. So that Blockälteste comes over, she says, her cousins, she has cousins there who were working in the factory, she wanted to save them. She wanted them to work in the camp. And she said that somebody has to go in because they're missing people to work. So she grabbed me and took me instead of her cousin. And the cousin I didn't see. I knew who her cousin is because we knew it already, that who is the relatives there. But so she put me in the line to go to work. I was crying, and that day, the reason why she was able to try to do it, because the SS woman who was there when the doctor said that I can't go to work was gone. New SS woman came. These people didn't know anything. Anyhow, so she put me in the line and she said, I have to go to work. And I was crying. Couldn't talk. The SS woman came over and asked me, they were not mean, those women. Says, why are you crying? So I said, I never went to work. I was working in the block. So the blockheltester started to yell, but now you're going to work. She is sick. The woman, she didn't say that it's her cousin. She said that the person who was supposed to go is sick. She is in the clinic, and you have to go. In the meantime, the other group from work arrived back already, the other shift. They were let in, and my sister noticed me there, crying. So she ran in. She said, what's going on? So started to explain her, and the blockheltester didn't want us to explain what's going on. So she came over, she hit my sister, she beat her up, and she beat me up. And the German woman, the SS woman, heard it. She says, I didn't know, because my sister told her in German, she knew a little more German than I did, that the doctor told me not to go to work in the factory. So she said, oh, I didn't know, so if that's the story, let her stay here. So we will have one person less today working. So that was once when, then after that we were there till April, and in April we were taken to Salzwedel.
Now when you were there, did you find, I guess even as early as, let's say, February and March, did you know the war was coming to a conclusion?
We knew how, because we didn't have a kitchen here. And also people had to go out of the camp to bring food. And the kitchen were where there were war soldiers who were caught by the Germans. What do you call them?
Prisoners of war, you mean?
Prisoners of war, yeah. Prisoners of war. And also there were a lot of French prisoners of war and Russian and Polish. And those people who went to the kitchen for the food, they were able to talk a few words with them. The SS was there, but they were not and the Wehrmacht, they were not. The Wehrmacht was very nice. So, you know, here a word, there a word, and we knew. We were told that the Americans are winning, and that eventually it will come to an end.
So now you were taken in April to which camp?
Salzwedel.
Okay, and what was Salzwedel like?
In Salzwedel we were taken to another, this was also a camp, also girls, only girls. So...
munitions also?
I'm sorry?
A munitions factory again?
No, I don't know what they were doing. I don't remember what they were. We were not working anymore. We came there, by train. We were there 1 week. And during that week we didn't work. The SS was all over. And outside of the camp, through the fence, we saw prisoners of war, Italians, French. They told us that they come from Italy, they come from France, and they told us that we should be aware, try not to go to sleep because they want to bomb. The Germans want to exterminate that camp. But said, we are watching it. Don't go to sleep, because if it comes at night, we should be able to save you as many as we can. So I don't know, they never did. They said that they wanted, I don't know, they never did. We were there 1 week. After a week, the Americans came in. We were liberated by the Americans.
Now, what was the day of this liberation?
As far as I remember, I said May 8th.
And can you describe that day? What was it like
Yes.
when they walked in?
We already knew from rumors that we will be liberated any day. And plus, we saw people for days before that marching, going on the roads with packages. The Germans, they were going back, withdrawing from the front. Looks like the Russians were coming or the Americans, and they were going back. And the night, as far as I remember, it was on a Saturday when we were liberated. The night before, all the SS disappeared. Because over here we didn't have any Wehrmacht, just SS. All the SS disappeared. In the morning when we got up, we didn't see one soldier, an SS soldier was standing by the gate. The rest of it, everybody was gone. There were SS women also there who used to be there. Everything was empty. All the buildings were empty there. And we were standing by the gate was locked, and that soldier was there with a gun standing in front of the... And then we saw on motorcycle two. First one, American soldier, and then two behind him. They came to the gate, and everybody started to scream, to cry. We saw that finally we are liberated. And then more soldiers came. And they told us we shouldn't be afraid, we will be taken care of. And that soldier, the German, the SS, when the Americans came, he started to move away. He started to run. And they yelled at him, "Don't run, don't be afraid." They shot him. He was running. They shot him. So that's how we were liberated. And they came in the camp. They looked around, looked for explosions or anything. And then
The SS women were gone from all the camps?
everybody. No, only that one German SS man was left. And then, I don't know, next day or 2 days later, I don't remember when, they told us that they want to empty out that camp. So they took us to also, you see, I don't remember whether by bus or we walked, I don't remember. I just remember being in a big place where soldiers used to be, barracks where soldiers used to live. They told us that the German soldiers used to be there, and they said, don't worry, they gave everybody a bed, and you will have good food now, you will eat normally, and they treated us really very nicely. Our stomachs were shrunk, yeah? So they didn't give us normal food because they said that they afraid that we will become sick.
They already knew the people were getting sick.
They used to make oatmeal and farina and feed us that. Chocolate, used to give us chocolate. And they started to talk to us. We didn't know English, but some of them knew German. We were there, we were liberated in May, and then we were there in this camp till August. In August, they announced, the Americans, that the camp will be taken over by the Russians.
Now,
So
did you know what this meant? Did you have
we
any...
didn't know, but they told us.
Oh,
The
okay.
American soldiers told us, rather than leave you with the Russian soldiers, you have a choice. Either you go to Bergen-Belsen, it's only 50 kilometers from here, or you want to go home, we have to go and register where we want to go. So we decided we want to go home. We were hoping that maybe somebody survived, because we were a big family. Not only my mother, I knew that it's not alive, my sister, but cousins.
Now, you knew by this point that I mean, countless numbers had been killed.
Right, but we still was hoping. We were
Okay.
hoping there were young, we had cousins, 20-year-old girl and 22-year-old girl, beautiful girls, cousins, boys. So we were hoping that somebody, also we had uncles who were taken to the forced labor and did not return before they took us to Auschwitz, so we were hoping that maybe they survived. Nobody survived.
So how'd you get back to Ulak?
The Americans took buses, packed us in buses, and we came to Prague.
Now,
They took us to Prague.
it was under Soviet control, correct?
Prague was under Soviet control. But this camp was emptied out completely. And we come to Prague, the Czech people were very nice. They came over to the station where we were taken off the buses, offered us tea and cake and bread. And we were a few days, in about 2 weeks maybe, in Prague, and then we decided to go home.
And when you get back to Ulak, what was it like?
We found nothing. The home was broken up. One house was standing, my grandfather's house building was standing, and one room was yet in good condition, so we were able to sleep there. We had no beds, we had no mattresses, we had nothing. Took in some straw from the neighbor, and we slept on the straw. And then a few days later, other people youngsters started to come back, also looking for family. So maybe 25, maybe not even that many people. Maybe about 20 people came back all together.
What about the people of Ulak?
That's what I want to say.
Okay.
We went to the neighbors where we used to live. So somebody told us that, one of the neighbors told us that our furniture, one bed is here, somebody has another, the couch. So we tried to go and ask, my sister and me, to ask for the couch, so maybe a bed, maybe you could sleep on the bed, not on the floor. So that time we saw that they are anti-Semites. We asked for the furniture, we recognized it. It's all ours. So she kicked my sister in the behind, says, Hitler did not do a good enough job. He didn't kill everybody, he should have done it. And she chased us out, she never gave us back that. We were there over the winter. We were waiting that maybe somebody will come back. And in the spring we decided there is nothing to wait there anymore. We went into a city in Slovakia. Now it was Slovakia already. When we came back, it was not Hungary anymore. In 1945, it was back Czechoslovakia. You were not allowed to speak Hungarian, only Czech. So if they caught you speaking Hungarian, they penalized you. Anyhow, we came into the bigger city. It was before Passover, and we knew we have no place where to be. So found out that there is a girls' home. Girls like us who came back from the concentration camp without family could go in there and